Hello, my name is Alexa, and this is my dress rehearsal video for my stress management workshop. So to start out, I'm going to have people coming in. I'm going to give them their papers and a pen, and I'm going to introduce myself to them briefly and have them find a seat. Everyone's going to be sitting in a circle, ideally, or in a double road circle. And they're going to have a ball, a little beach ball, and we're going to play a game for the icebreaker. It's called Movie Ball. So I'm going to explain the rules to them as they come in. There's not a lot. That the ball will go in the air, people will catch the ball. When you catch it, you say the name of a movie, the first one that you can think of, and then you toss it again. And it's just a way for people to get kind of relaxed and have a little bit of fun while everyone's checking in. And the goal, I'll let people know, is to get the ball to everybody as quickly as possible, and we'll spend like 5 minutes doing that. And then once everyone's arrived, I will introduce myself. My name is Alexa. I'm a lifestyle medicine student from MSU Denver, and I want you to know that any information that I present today is not medical advice. I'm just a student. And if you have any questions about your health or wellness, I would encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider. But if you have any questions about my presentation today that I can answer, please feel free to ask me at the end. So we're going to start out with an activity. Everyone will already have the handout. The first one is this, what makes you feel stressed out? And I'll introduce the activity with, stress is something we all have, right? We get it every day. It's a normal part of life. Everyone feels some degree of stress that's caused by a lot of different things. Some are really serious and some are just everyday little things like being late for work maybe. So this acronym that you have here is NUTS, things that are new, unexpected, threatening, or out of control. And these are all things that stress triggers have in common. So what I'd like to start out with is to have everybody just kind of consider some things that stress you out every day. What are your regular stresses? Some examples of a new stress is maybe starting a new job or a new school year, or maybe having a child. Some unexpected things might be like construction on the way to work or getting sick. Another one for the T, where you feel threatened, might be someone insulting you or facing a major fear, can make people feel really uncomfortable. And then finally, your sense of control being threatened, perhaps the landlord raising the rent unexpectedly or a natural disaster. Those things are both really out of hand. So a lot of these will overlap, like one stressor might be both new and out of control, or it might be threatening and unexpected. But just kind of think of some different things, small or large, that you deal with that would fit in any of these categories and take a note of them. And then we'll just take a few minutes to do that, and then we'll talk about them. So I'm going to give everyone like 2 to 3 minutes when everyone looks done, just to kind of look it over and write 1 or 2 things that they can think of. And then we'll go down to the bottom part of the page where we will talk about it. And so what I'll have people do is talk with their neighbors. If we're in a circle, people can talk more together, but if we're in a different arrangement, people just talk with the people around them. But I want people to talk, I want them to talk with one another about how stress affects your daily life. So these things that you wrote down, how does that make you feel? Does it get in the way of doing things that you would like to do? Does it affect your mood? Maybe does it affect your relationship with your family, your kids, your spouse? How do you think it might affect your health and wellness? Do you feel that it causes you tension? Anything like that? And just kind of talk with one another about what stresses you out and how that affects your daily life. And so then I'll give everyone just a few minutes to have an open discussion about it. And then at the end, if it's really quick, I'll ask if anyone wants to share what they talked about, or something that they heard that they relate to, or something that stuck with them. And my hope is that this exercise has you thinking about things that are stressful in your life so that you can apply these stress management techniques to your specific situation. And now we'll go on and discuss how your stresses connect with your well-being. So the next handout is called Levels of Stress. It looks like this. And some stress is positive because it helps us to improve or perform better in stressful situations, right? If you have like an emergency and your heart rate is up and you're getting more sugar to your muscles and you're more focused, that can really help you respond to the emergency and be more successful and give you a higher chance of surviving or coming out in a better spot. Other times it's too much and having a high heart rate makes us feel really uncomfortable. Like if you're giving a presentation and you're really nervous, that might make it difficult to speak or difficult to remember the things that you're trying to talk about. So sometimes stress can be helpful and sometimes it can get in the way. So looking at this levels of stress handout, we can see that some stress is positive. That's like mild to medium stress, things that start, but then they end and you feel better after, and you can kind of take a deep breath and you're fine. These are helpful, necessary. We don't want to get rid of stress altogether. And then in the middle, we have tolerable stress. It's a little bit higher. It can last longer and make us feel a little overwhelmed, but that will also eventually end, and we should get a break afterward where we can recover and start to feel back to normal. And then at the latter end here is toxic stress, which is excessive stress. It goes on for far too long, or it could be just a really extreme situation that is just too much to handle in a short amount of time. So that might be like a natural disaster, having a traumatic experience, or being in like a continuously stressful living situation, maybe having like a really extreme stressful job, or just feeling like you are overwhelmed every day and you just can't really keep your head above water, so to speak. So over time, when you have stress that goes on the latter end of the spectrum, that's more in the yellow and orange area, that's tolerable to unmanageable and stays that way for a long time, that's when we can get into having some health problems. So like I said, ideally the stress response can be helpful when it's minimal, but let's talk about some ways that we can tell if we're having too much stress and it might become a problem. So there's a lot of different signs. There's some mental signs, emotional signs. You might have some physical signs or changes in your behavior that indicate you might be having too much stress. So the mental signs might be like trouble concentrating, might be forgetful, might be spacing out a lot, have a hard time paying attention, or you might just be really preoccupied, worrying about things that is getting in the way of your normal routines. Another sign is emotional. You might have a lot of anger, mood swings, frustrations, feeling unmotivated, not having a lot of confidence, feeling like you're talking to yourself really negative a lot. And then body signs might be like pain that you don't really know why. You might have a lot of aches, or a lot of people will get in their jaw, have like grinding teeth. People can also get upset stomach, have nausea or digestive problems that are related to having too much stress. You might have changes in your weight because your appetite can change, your eating habits, when you're under a lot of pressure. And you might feel tired, run down, just exhausted. And then finally, behavior signs. You might feel like you have no time left to do activities that make you happy, so you're just kind of always grinding away at work, be it employment or housework or responsibilities, and just you have no more time left for yourself. You might use more alcohol, smoke more cigarettes, or use more tobacco, or use caffeine or other drugs to help you cope with the stress. And for a lot of people, that will look like either beginning a new substance habit or increasing the current one that they have already. So if maybe you normally smoke like a couple cigarettes a day, when you're under a lot of pressure, maybe you smoke like 4 or 5 or more. You might double that. So that's another sign that you're having too much stress. You can have relationship problems or changes in your behavior, like doing reckless things. And then in kids, they might do a couple of these things, but they might do a little bit of different stuff too. Like in kids, what we might see is like changes in their attitude. They might have behavioral problems in school, have a bad attitude all of a sudden, or just be kind of like not agreeable, not the kid that you really know normally. They might get a lot of headaches, and a lot of kids might complain of nightmares. They might forget things more or have trouble connecting with their friends and family. So it's important to pay attention to these things, to notice signs that you're under too much stress, because it's your body and your mind trying to tell you that there's something going on that's not right. So if you know that there might be a problem, if you have any indicators that you're having excessive stress, you can take that as a sign that you need to do something about it. And there's a lot of things that you can do that are free, don't take a lot of time. You can just incorporate them into your regular life without too much extra effort, and you'll feel a lot better and save yourself from a lot of trouble down the road potentially. And then if we have extra time, I will ask people to share how they can tell when they've had too much stress, like their personal experience. What about their kids? How can they tell if their kids have had a lot of stress? Because this is a family group, and so I want it to be things that people can use for their whole family. Okay, so next we're going to talk about how excessive stress can affect your health and wellness, just so that you can have a better understanding of why it might be important to manage your stress. So we're going to look at this handout here called Stress and Wellness. And so we've talked about some ways that stress can hurt us in the short term, being forgetful, being late to things, having trouble communicating, feeling a little bit anxious, that kind of thing. But there's some ways that stress can hurt us over a lifetime too, and those are important to look at because those are the more serious ones that we all really want to watch out for. A lot of studies have looked at connections between stress and disease, and some of them look at specific diseases, but I looked at one here that covers various diseases that are all linked to one thing, inflammation, or swelling of your body's tissues inside. And so a lot of the diseases that we would consider to be pretty serious, like maybe cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, stroke, and diabetes, high blood pressure, those are all related to inflammation and have been traced back to high levels of stress, because when you feel a lot of stress, it's your body's reaction. I guess there's a better way to say that. When we feel stress, it's because our body is having a reaction to what's going on by releasing a lot of chemicals and hormones, and that's what raises your heart rate and makes you feel kind of sweaty and like you need to get moving, you need to fight or leave or freeze up. And those chemicals, when they stay in your body for a long time, they can damage your tissues and they can cause a lot of problems. And so that's what these diseases are linked to stress for. So one thing that I noticed in the study that was pretty significant is that people with chronic stress or stress that lasts for a long time have a 5 times higher chance of developing heart disease than people who don't have chronic stress. And there are a lot of factors that contribute to these diseases, but one of them that we do have control over is our stress, to a degree. And they did mention that one of the reasons that stress might be linked to these diseases and inflammation is because of the behavior changes that come with high stress. So maybe you're feeling a lot of pressure. Like I said, you might smoke more, you might drink more, you might have a harder time following healthy diet patterns, and might eat more comfort foods like fried foods, sugary foods to make you feel better. And those behaviors that we engage in to make us feel better when we're stressed might actually be hurting us more that plus the stress chemicals can really cause a lot of damage to tissues, and over time that could be a problem. Another thing they talked about was aging more quickly. So like age-related diseases, we might think of like cognitive decline, like not being able to think right and having trouble remembering things. That can be accelerated by living a life that's high in stress. And then also dying early from any of these diseases, and that would be just a real shame if you couldn't prevent that with doing these activities. So we're going to talk about some additional benefits of managing stress, obviously other than avoiding these diseases. They might be sleeping better. You might feel a little bit lighter, feel relieved, more like yourself. Your relationships could improve. You might have healthier eating habits, maintain your weight a little easier. You could age a little more gracefully because you're doing things to take better care of yourself and you're not under so much pressure. A lot of people feel like they get sick less and they can recover a little bit faster because your immune system is not suppressed by the stress. You can also protect against these diseases that we talked about. So there's a lot of reasons to just make a little bit of time to keep your stress levels a little bit lower. We can't always avoid what causes our stress, right? We have to go to work, we have to take care of our children, we have to lead these busy lives, but we can try to take little steps to make the stress just less of a burden on us, right? So that's what we're going to look at, is just some ways that we can protect our health, feel better overall by engaging in some stress reduction activities. So the next thing we'll look at is called the Stress Management Strategy Sheet. And I understand that many of you guys are busy working families that already have a lot on your plate and probably not a lot of extra free time to be adding new things, right, to your daily list. So what I focused on here was some stress management activities that you can just incorporate into your daily activities that you already do without adding a lot of extra time or money or energy. And they're also things that you can do with your kids. So I try to make them family friendly, just looking at things that would be realistic to apply. So the first one here is just relaxing in general. One of the easiest ways to do that is by controlling your breathing. So let's all just try really quickly to take a few deep breaths together. And just kind of notice how you feel after you take a few breaths. See if that changes anything in your body or your mind. For me, it kind of slows me down a little, helps me focus. And then another one with relaxing that you can do is stretching. So especially if you have a job where you have to sit a lot or you're using your body quite a bit. Just some little things, things we all did in school. Just stretching your arms out. You can stretch your legs. Just kind of like anything really. You can bend down, cross your arm over, open up your ribs a little. Just gentle little things that make you feel good. When you wake up in the morning and you have that urge to stretch, kind of like that. You just want to feel where your body might have some tension and just kind of try to stretch it out, loosen it up. And that only takes a couple minutes or less. You can do that on the fly, when you get out of the car. It doesn't take a lot of work. So the next one that I have here is playing. This is especially good because physical activity can really help with stress, and playing is a really fun way to do that. And I know that we all have kids of different ages, but playing is something that anyone can do, little to big kids to adults. It's great for everyone. So some ideas that I put here is maybe playing catch with your family, playing tag in the house, maybe not the best place. Playing board games is another way that's less physical but still a lot of fun. You can dance in your kitchen or living room, or I thought maybe in your group for the Hope of the Grand Valley you could have like a field day, or maybe one of your classes is just having a little bit of fun with everybody. And if you have pets, that's another good way to play. Go play catch with your dog, or play games with your cat or your fish. Maybe not the best, but So the next one will be connecting, and this would be like social support. Has a really, really positive impact on stress. If you can just make some time to talk with people that you care about, make a phone call to your old friend, maybe call your parent or your another loved one. Take some time to really connect with people, not just typing and texting them, but maybe like meeting them in person is the best. But if you're too busy for that, maybe do a little face chat. Talk with someone for a few minutes. You don't necessarily have to talk about what's bothering you, although that can help. But just feeling like you can rely on other people and that they can depend on you too. Building those strong relationships can really make you feel less stressed, reducing the burden of everyday life. And it can also build resiliency, which is just strength that you have to make you be able to face stress a little easier. So if you take a few minutes every week to talk with your friend just about everyday things, then that seems small, but over time it builds you enough resiliency that when something stressful does come up, you might be able to just handle it a little easier. So another one we have here is laughing, and that's another one you can just do anytime with your family, especially. Some ideas are maybe to add humor to your week by learning some jokes, or if you know some, say them to people, let people know. You can watch funny movies. There are a lot of apps that you can download to look at funny pictures, or they have jokes on there too. Something that you can expose yourself to humor on a regular basis just to give yourself a little bit of a laugh, you know. That's really good to do. It's another thing you can do at the dinner table at your family meal. Just have everyone go and say something funny that happened to them today. Laughing at your own experiences, while they may be stressful, laughing at your mistakes can be really helpful too. Another way to add some humor. Releases endorphins or chemicals that make you feel good, and that kind of counterbalances the negative effects that stress is having. And then the final one I put here is reflecting. This is something that you can do kind of to yourself in your mind, or write it down and look back on it later. What I have is you could perhaps just take note of positive experiences that happen. Like you might see your kids do something silly or cute. You might see a peaceful flower while you're driving or out and about that catches your eye, and just kind of remember, take note of those images. I feel like we easily remember things that are negative that happen to us, but if we just take a little time to focus on the positive things, those can really build up more resiliency. One recommendation in the research was to keep a gratitude journal, which you could do on paper or just in your phone, in your note card, and just write one thing, maybe 5 things a day that you are thankful for. And that was shown to help people have a lot lower stress chemicals in their blood, presumably by making people just focus more on the positive things so that the negative things that were stressing them out weren't so apparent to them. So now that we have a couple of those things in mind, let's take a break by doing this stretching activity. We've been sitting for a while, so let's just get up for a few minutes and we'll do this. It's called Find Someone Who. It's like a bingo game. So everyone has a pen, and I'll have people just stand up in the circle, go around, talk with one another, and the purpose is to find someone who has done 1 or 2 of these activities. I encourage you to only use each person's initials 1 or 2 times, depending on how many people we have, I guess. I'll decide that. But if you find someone who has a favorite comedian, they can tell you, then you can write their initials in there, or somebody who does breathing exercises regularly, or likes to watch cartoons, or someone who takes walks in nature to relax. So when you find someone that does these things, write their initials in there, and if you fill up the whole page, or get as many as possible in the amount of time that we have, I will give you a prize. So when you fill up your page, call out bingo or blackout, and ideally this will last like 5 to 10 minutes, but if we're getting close on time, I'll just cut it and give people the prizes. I have little stress balls with encouraging phrases on them, and I thought that would be a good prize. So that's our stretch break activity, and then after that I'll transition with, I hope everyone enjoyed the break and potentially learned something new, maybe a new way to relax that they didn't know before that one of their other people does here. And the last thing we're going to talk about is we're going to practice some ways that you can actively reduce stress when it's happening. So those other things we talked about are things you can incorporate into your life to build resiliency, keep your general stress levels lower. But what we want to also look at is how can we manage stress when it's happening, like right now. Or if we've had a really hard day, how can we kind of return to a normal level, what's normal for us. So these, again, they're free. I kept them pretty simple, things that you can do just real quickly without a lot of time. You can do them while you're doing other things, and they can be done just quietly to yourself. You don't need any equipment. You don't have to say anything out loud, although you can if you want to. And I have some that you can do in the moment of high stress or when you're having a lot of stress in general and you just need to kind of bring yourself back down. And again, these are things that you can do with kids or do all together as a family if you make time to spend a few minutes at the end of the day to do together. So the first thing that we'll talk about is self-talk. And this is the way that we talk to ourselves in our minds when we have little conversations with ourselves. You know, something happens and you have an inner voice that talks to you. So, or that you talk to yourself with. And this is important. While it seems insignificant because we do it unintentionally, it just happens, it's important because it really affects how we feel. And some of the studies that I was looking at was saying that self-talk is one of the big factors that can really make or break your stress levels when you're exposed to high levels of stress. So a person who experiences the same events as another person, equally stressful, but the person who talks positively to themselves is going to be able to handle it a lot better and have a lot less health problems because of it than somebody who really beats themselves up, talks harshly to themselves in the same situation. So this is important, and it's something that we can add to our daily routine and control pretty easily. So what we can do is pay attention to how we talk to ourselves. We can better control our mood and our stress. So we're looking at this sheet here called Give Yourself a Pep Talk. And it just talks about noticing what your inner voice is telling you when you're having stressful experiences. Start by listening, paying attention. What do you hear from yourself? What types of things do you say? Does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel bad? And the next thing you'll do is start asking questions. So if you notice yourself talking to yourself, what kinds of things are you saying? Is there any evidence for these things you're saying? What can you do to help the situation that you're thinking of? And would you talk this way to someone that you really love and care about? That's a really good way to catch negative self-talk, things that are harsh and hurtful, is would I say that to my friend? And a lot of times with negative self-talk, you sure wouldn't. It's really terrible things that we say to ourselves sometimes. So the final thing that we'll do is when you catch yourself doing these things, kind of just try to adjust it. Just say, hey, that's not really true. And what can I do to shift that a little bit? So one of the examples is maybe like telling yourself you should try harder. Like you're not doing well and I should try harder. What you can maybe try to say instead is, I'm doing the best that I can and I can try again. Do a lot of negative self-talk. It can be really difficult to just change and start talking positive, right? We don't expect anyone to make a change that quickly. So what we'll do is we'll just practice one thing at a time to help you get more used to talking to yourself in a kind way that helps you build resiliency against stress and make you just feel more in control and able to manage better. So what we'll do is practice by repeating statements that I'll have you create your own, or look at this list, whatever really resonates with you, that can counter the harsh self-talk by just repeating them to yourself. So you can also write them down, post them at your mirror, a place you can read them. You can put them in your phone, look at them often, but it's going to be something that we just want to like say over and over again to ourselves to help us remember when we are having stress and we do get in that mode of wanting to say mean things to ourselves. It's important to remind yourself of these positive phrases regularly so you can just build yourself up. So we're just going to take a little bit of time to write some positive phrases, and I want you to write ones that fit with your own experiences and ones that fit with your personality. The goal is just to keep them short, keep them positive, and make it something that you would say to someone that you love. So speak as kindly to yourself as you would to someone you care about. And like I said, there's some examples up here. I'm a great parent and I'm doing my best. I believe in myself. I can only compare myself to myself rather than comparing myself to other people. This is challenging, but I can grow from it, rather than saying this is too hard, I can't do it, that kind of thing. So there's some space down here. You can mark stars next to the ones that you like, or just write your own little ideas down here. Like I said, just do a few, keep them short, make it something that is meaningful to you, that you would say to yourself, so that it's useful. And you can stick these phrases places you'll see them. I've seen people like turn them into like wall art if it's something you want to see every day to remind yourself of, and that could be a fun family project. But the goal is to kind of get yourself talking more positively to yourself so that when you have a lot of pressure, you're inclined to talk negatively, that you can kind of have something to counter that with. Until you get into the routine of it more, it'll be a little bit easier. So the last thing that I want to talk about us doing together for stress management is practicing controlled breathing. Breathing is powerfully linked to our emotions, how our body feels, and it's a really great way to manage your stress response while it's happening, or like when you're in the end portion where your stress is prolonged and the stress is over, but you still feel elevated. So this is another one that you can do when you're really busy. You don't have to stop what you're doing to just control your breathing. And you can practice it with your kids as well. So it's really good for that. So the handout we'll look at finally is called A Calming Breath. And the first box we have here talks about the box breathing technique. And this is the one that we'll use in high moments of stress to help you relax and focus better so that the stress isn't overtaking your thought process. This one I found in an article designed for EMS workers, and it's supported to reduce the impact of the stress response that interferes with your functioning and just allows the stress response to happen, the part that promotes your response to be better in a harsh situation. So if EMS workers can use it to save people's lives, I think we can use it to help us calm down. It seems pretty effective. So what we'll do is we'll just kind of get into a relaxed position, and I'll talk you through the steps, or you can read them along with me. We'll start by breathing deep into your low belly for 4 seconds. Pause 4 seconds and feel your breath in your body. Exhale fully for 4 seconds. Pause 4 seconds, feeling the space between breaths. So let's repeat that a few times now that we've done one practice. So breathe in, pause, exhale, pause, breathe in, pause, breathe out, pause. And the timing, the 4 seconds, isn't really important. It's just a number that you can remember with the box, has 4 sides. So do whatever's comfortable for you. And you don't want to be like holding your breath, just kind of taking a break, feeling the breath occupying the space in your body. So like I said, that's a good one if you're having a high pressure moment that you can do. It's hard to do while you're talking, so if you need to take a break, step away for a moment to do it, it can really help. But if you're not speaking, you can do it while you're doing other things, and I found that to be really useful. And then the other one that I have here is a deep relaxation breathing technique, and this one is supported for building resiliency and lowering overall stress levels. This one's not as good to do while stress is happening because you do kind of need to like get more in the zone for this one. But we'll practice it right now. You can do this as a preventative measure, so maybe adding it to your morning routine, like after you brush your teeth, just take a few minutes to do some deep breathing, and that can just build you up, make you more prepared to deal with the day. You can do it a few times a day. You can do it after you've encountered some stress and just need help winding down. This one's good for that. So again, we'll get into a comfortable sitting or standing position. You want to kind of relax your arms. Don't lock your knees. Let your limbs hang loose and keep a relaxed, upright posture. And then we'll inhale slowly and deeply into our belly. And exhale. Focus on the feeling of breathing out and letting your chest fall. Inhale again, slowly and deeply into your low belly. Exhale slowly, letting your chest fall. And if you can, try closing your eyes and just focus on the sensation of breathing. That's what's really important here with this one, is just the sensation of breathing. Like I said before, there is a really strong connection between breathing and your mood and attitude. And so if you're experiencing a great deal of stress, just taking some time to control that breathing can really control your perception of that stress. So today we went over some different ways that stress can come up in your life, how you can be affected by it, both in the short term, by day to day, or in the long term if it goes on for too long and is too much. We also talked about how to tell if you're having too much stress and some different kinds of stress that you can experience, and a few ways that you can manage it. What can you do about it? And then the last thing we did was practice some real techniques that you can use in your day-to-day life that are hopefully accessible, that can help keep your stress lower, and you can just add them to your toolkit of things that you do for yourself. So if anybody has any questions, that's the end of our class here, and I'm happy to answer anything that I can or refer you to the right place if I know it. Thank you for coming out today.